Hi everyone, I am Pauline, and in this video I'll try to show you how I've created my latest material with Substance Designer. I'm sorry if my English isn't perfect, I'll try to do my best so you can still understand it. Let's get started. First of all, let's take a look at reference pictures. For this material, I've used two reference pictures. This one was for the 8 map, and since it takes a lot of time itself, I'll spend a lot of time on this one, and then you'll see that one is for the material, the finished part. So on this one, what I tend to do is always look to decompose it. So you can see in that picture, you can see that the corners are the same and the borders on the left and right are the same, and the only parts that are unique are the centerpiece and top and bottom one. So I try to decompose it first. If I can create one corner and the borders, it will be easier because I got all the proportions and the main piece at first. So I'll begin by creating the corners, the borders, these ones, the sides, and then when I got all of this, I did the bottom, the top, and then the middle part. So let's take a look at the corners first. You can see them right here. So it looks like this, and it's simply added in a mirror node right here, so you can mirror on the corners. To create this pattern, it was quite easy, I'd say, because it's pretty much all the same parts that are placed in different places. So let's take a look. If you can see, you can see that this leaf is exactly the same as all the leaves, and the middle part was quite easy, same, because it was those parts inverted. So let's take a look. First of all, let's look at the leaves. To create these ones, I've used a shape, a simple shape, that I plugged in a lot of transforms, as you can see. And by creating those shapes and adding them together, like this, you can see at the end I got something like this. So it's not pretty for the moment, but if you plug it in a mirror grayscale node, you can have something like that. To get it more volume and a smoother shape, I'd say, I've plugged it in a blur node, and by leveling it like that, you got the shape, and here you got the gradient on the side. So if you blend them together, like this one multiply on this one, you got this. There's another option you can do, is like if you take that one and you plug it in a level node, if you move your black part like this and the gray part like this, you can see it creates almost the same thing. But I really wanted to see that part, it's really going deep in the bottom, and on this one it's really too close for me, so I really wanted the same amount of gradient on the side, so I didn't do it like that. So you get this, and just to create like the middle part, I simply added a gradient, multiplying a gradient on here, so you can see this part here, and with another gradient I can use it so this part right here isn't as cut at the bottom part. To create some more volumes on this part here, I've basically just duplicate that part, and as you can see, the shape here is way smaller, so it creates like little bumps on the sides like this, and if you put them on screen all over that pattern, it creates a bit more volume in the leaf. So that's the leaf. To start the pattern, I simply plugged in it splatter circular, and as you can see, I got now 4 of them, and I've used a level so I can have 2 layers of leaf on that one. With the transform, I just rotated it and blend together. It creates that shape. Then the next step was those tiny things. So I've created it like this, and it's basically always the same. It's I always go from a shape and I work it out so it looks like something. So here it's the same, a shape that I've leveled it, blended to lose. You see those tiny spiky things? I didn't want that, um, but I still wanted to, I don't know, feel the shape, but don't see it. So with the level, like I said earlier, it's like that. You put the black on a bit more on the right, and you pull the gray level a bit on the left, and you get that shape. For the parts with the dots, you can see it's like this part in a transform, so it's a bit crushed on the top, and by adding those cushions patterns on top, it creates, you see those tiny dotty things. And with the mask that I've made here, I came to add this part on top of it, and then I've made with a gradient linear and a curve that you can see here. I've made the tail of the thing. So you can just simply see create that shape, and the fruit will be on that part. With a level, I pushed up a bit on the white side, and with, that's ugly, there. And with the gradients, another one, I've come to plug in a blend node in subtracts, and so you create that shape. And on that one, with the transform, I just flipped it and blend it together with the fruit, and so it gives you something like that. Now you can once again blend it, splatter it with a splatter circular and blend it with the whole shape. You'll see it's pretty much always the same thing. It's always creating something and splatter it some ways and then blend together with the rest of it. On that one, I was just creating with the shape right there. I was just creating a bit more of a crease in the middle, so I can add this part. And this part was created with a. I just simply created like this shape with a this shape with a splatter circular once again. And by modifying the spread and the shape of it's just a paraboloid shape. It's really quite easy. I didn't plug anything in it. Using the spread, I could move it around and get something like that. But it's quite a huge graph, so you won't see a lot. By blending it with the same, it's exactly the same, but I rescaled the dots, so you can see it's a bit smaller if you blend it in subtract once again with a little opacity. it creates that shape, you know, where it's creased in, but you got the main shape underneath. So once again, in another splatter circular, so you get that one. And by blending another shape in it, you get that real round crease in the middle. So here's for the sides, and for the middle parts it was, see, that one, but I just rotated it in the other way. So you get this, and the same as the fruit before, I've used some Gaussian dots masked with that one, so you can get that pattern. I've used this one on this one, blended it together, so I get that thing, and with this shape on multiply all over it, you can see it gets rounder and you get more volume. So you get something like that, and when you blend it together, you get this. And once again, you come back there, whoa, whoa, whoa. You come back there, and get that shape. I just rescaled it. The level was too ease it down because it was really popping off. Since you see, you go from almost black to almost white. I wanted it to be a little more flatter. So here it is. On that part, I've made those tiny things on the borders. Since that part was finished, I wanted to have all the sides, and then I could work out the rest of it. So to make those borders, the tiny ones, it's right here. I simply used a shape that I transformed and blend together, so I got like that round piece and a more oval piece, and blended it together. I got this kind of thing. So when you rescale it, it becomes smaller, obviously, and you can simply have that line by making it by changing the tiling mode. If you go in absolute, if you pass it in absolute, you can choose on which way you want it to tile. So I want it only on the horizontal line. With the mirror grayscale node, I could have these double dots in the middle. So I got one dot, two dots, one dot, and etc. Coming back to that corner, I've used it like this, so I got the part right here, and I've used the shape. See, it's like a simple square that I rotated to use it as a mask, so you can have those angles on the right, on the sides. And using once again the mirror grayscale, I can have the top and bottom, and using a transformation, just rotating it and blend it together, and we got the square. So you can blend it together and you get that thing. Once again, I've rescaled it. It's a lot of rescale too, because I work in full squares, and I just rescale it once I get it. And on that part, I come to blend the thickest border. So it's exactly the same thing. You see, it's on the bottom and on top and bottom, but I didn't use a mirror on that one because I wanted nothing. I just didn't do it the same way. See, once again the corners, so I've used the same corner shape in the mirror, So you get that, transform, rotate it, and you get the whole square. That shape was actually one of the toughest I had to make. It was really tough because I couldn't get the right thing. And the thing with that one is that I looked for a way to tile it, but I didn't know if I had to cut it like in the middle of those shapes or in the middle of those one to create it easily. So I've tried some different stuff, and the way it worked was by using some shapes. It's a bit messy, I'm sorry, but creating some shapes. I wanted the big one first, because once it was done, the little one was easier, and that one is just a simple shape in the middle, so it was pretty much easy to get in the end. So I've got those shapes first. As I've used a simple disc and subtracted a tinier one to get that shape. And then I scale it on the side, so you can have this part. So you can see on that part it will be the top left, and on that part it will be the bottom right. And when you blend it together with the mask, you get to that shape. The the tricky part is was that it's supposed to be a bit larger, but the dots on the in the middle part right here, you'll see after, was really round on the reference picture. So I tried to do my best and try some stuff, but it wasn't working too well. I'm still not really satisfied with it, but it did a trick, so it's fine. On that part, so I yeah, to have the other part right here, see, because you got that main part, but in the tiling you got this one and this one in the same corner too. So I flipped it and blended it with a mask. It's simply the shape, transform and rescale that I inverted and blend together. To get now that part where it's curved in the middle, I used, as always, a blur per HQ grayscale, and inverted it so I can use a gradient. You see, the gradient is in fact the whole base. It's like a simple curve, and I've used this as a mask and this on multiply all the way all over it. So I got that part done. The the tinier part, like this tiny thing here, is exactly the same, but I've had to use a bit more of a mess to do it, because that tiny part was a circle, was good, but that part was like really hard to get right. I don't know why it looks easier right now, but on the moment it was really hard to get right. So I got that part here to get that shape. So you see, it's always half of a circle and the other half of a circle right here to get that. And once again, I moved it so I can get those shape. I just flipped it, sorry. And this part right here was to finish the circle, so you can see it's all over it and then it moves on the sides. So you end up with something like that, and once again you blur it, you use it as a mask, and that gives you something like that. And the middle part was quite easy. It was a simple shape that I moved on the side. You see, I stretched it a little, so it can be, it looks like a real circle at the end, but it's in fact a bit more stretched. So use it as a mask once again. Use this one as a mask and this one as the shape. and you get that thing. And once again, if you transform it and make it tile only horizontally, you get something like that. And I've rescaled it on the sides right here because I don't really care if it tiles or not on the sides, because if you look at it, there's tiny flowers on the corners, so it doesn't really matter if it's really tiling on those parts. I don't really mind. Once again, rotate it, blend it together, and you get that thing. Once you get that, I've scaled it in a corner, and using a mirror grayscale once again in mirror corner mode, I get my corners, and that's a good thing done actually. Once I get that, I wanted to get the sides, the side part. So once again, it was using the leaf I've created before, like this, and I created that pattern. So you can see it's those ones are going up, and this one is creasing down actually. So I just inverted it and used a mask like this one to still get the shape. Then what did I do? I transformed it, yeah, so I can get multiple pieces and add that part in the middle, so you can get something like that. And I just added once again those fruits that I created before, so you see it's a lot of pieces that I've already made, and I just come and use it again. Then I get to something like this using vertical tiling only, and I transformed it to get on the sides. When I'm doing this, I'm not that advanced in the graph, so I can just plug together in a blend those two, the corners and the sides, and I can see if the shapes goes well or not. And on that part, I wanted just to top off that thing, because you see the last one is a bit cut, like clearly cut, so I used this one, and so it's all finished. And the bottom part was just a simple sphere and that kind of shape, like it looks like a leaf too. So I get all that done, and that's one side done. See, it's way easier since you got all the pieces from this one. This one goes really quicker. That's why I choose to do the corners and then the sides and then the rest, because all those parts are were really tricky, but those borders on the right and left were kind of easier to make. Using a mirror once again and a level to shut the white a bit, blend it together, and you got already the borders. But yeah, the borders were kind of tricky because I tried to use a lot of splatter on that one once again. So to get that thing, that part, sorry, so I can use it in a splatter, you see, like that, hello, like that, and the corners just get it right here. So to get that, I wanted to have those tiny borders, and the big one are just simply that shape transformed, and it's simply a flip on that part. Flip vertically, blend together, and I got this result. And on the tiny one, it's pretty much the same. It's you get one side and mirror it. You get the top that I've masked with that shape once again, so the corners are cut. You get the mirror, so you get bottom and top, blend it together, and you get that piece. I just rotated it, and then you can blend it together, and you get those side pieces. So you can splatter them in splatter circular once again, and use it on the sides. So you got the top, bottom, right, left parts, and from now on it will be kind of easier because you get the proportions right. And on the flowers, it was pretty easy too. I've created that shape. Hello. That shape, so I can re-splatter once again it um, um, in corners, so I can see those black spots. So it's easier to come and blend those tiny flowers right after. So it's pretty much the same thing right here. I splattered them once and then I resplattered them again with a bit of level to calm the whites and blend together. It's something like that. So that part is done, and it was pretty much easy when you look at the rest. On the middle part, you see it's not a simple square. It got some curves on the side. So I've used the that shape that I've had before in the mirror, so I get only 2 dots everywhere. And by shaping it like really tight on the side and using a Cartesian 2 polar node, I can make it around and then use it to get in the corners and mirror it, so I have the 4 corners, and once again it's only that one getting on the side and on the top. I blend together like this and using that shape as a mask. See, it's like a shape tiled in 2 with the scale at almost 0.5. Rescaled it, inverted it, and then you get something like that. Once you get that, you can rescale it and blend together, and you get this one. And then you can add the shapes that you've made before, those things on the side, and you get this. All the corners are done, the sides are done, and the tiny borders are done, and it's from there it will be easier. From there, I also wanted to have some more depth on the 8 map, like in the reference picture. So I've created a lot of tiny shapes to get those levels. I simply use some squares that I came to blend together, so you can get the top and bottom. Add this one to get the corner, and this one to get the middle part. So once you plug it in a mirror once again in the corners, you get that shape. With a level, I shut down the whites once again, so I can get another level inside. So it's basically once again just that same part, copy and paste it with the shape a little bit tinier, so you get those things once again, and now you get 2 levels of deepness, of depth. If you get this and subtract it, you can see that the borders become the highest part, then it becomes a little less height, and the black part is the really bottom. So I got 3 stages of height more than before. And in the middle part, I wanted those things. It's moulure in French. I don't know how to say that in English. So to get that part, I've used a gradient plugged in a curve. So as you can see there, I just drew the curve I wanted, and using a transform, I've made the corners right here. And to get those rounded sides, I once again used the Cartesian to polar, transformed it to put it in a corner, and get that thing using another shape as a mask. You can see I get this one, and the middle part wasn't really a bad thing. I really didn't care because after everything I'm just gonna put it in a mirror grayscale, and as you see that piece here just doesn't exist anymore. So right there I've used a transform to put it make it tinier, and with the level right here I posted the white for once, so I can get that part in the middle. And I simply took a shape, like a square shape, transformed it to create like some kind of a cross shape. So you see the right here, so the middle part is black and the corners stays gray, so I got that part really deeper and that part a little bit less, sorry, and that part is higher. So you blend it together and you get something like that. So that main height was blended right here, and you get something like that. Well, then you only have to get the middle part, sorry, the middle parts done, and I started with the bottom one because I remember I didn't want to see that part for now because it was like too complicated. I knew it would take time, so I always try to put the thing that will take the most of my time in the last bit, and I really wanted to try to get that part right. That part was a bit easier in my mind, but it really wasn't. So I did it later. First of all, I did that part with the torch. So if you start here at the bottom, I've made some ivy leaves because once again you can see that there's those leaves everywhere. There's the two torches, the flames, and the ribbons. So every time I start to do a pattern, I try to cut it in parts and do every part apart from each other and then blend it together. So I actually didn't start with that part. I started with that part. So to get that shape of the torches, I once again used the gradients in a curve, and see I've created, it's a little bit tiny, I've created that shape so I can get all the volumes of the torches once again. And using a gradient with a level, you see I inverted the black and white here instead of using an invert. It's pretty much the same. And blended in Substract, you get that shape. It's kind of magical. I really don't know why it works, but it works. Using a level again, I've pulled the gray a bit on the left side so I can get a more full shape. Transformed it a bit so I can get the place on top to get the flame going. Right there, the flame isn't really, I'm not really satisfied with it, but it looks a bit more like a paintbrush than, than a flame, but anyway, it works. So the way I've created it was by using this noise with a level inside, so I can get that kind of pattern. I've blurred it a little and used a curve to get something like that. I just didn't want it to be like a full shape. I wanted some breakups in it. Then I've blended together those two parts, so I subtract that thing in the other one using a mask, so I get that part fuller than that part. Uh, and then I've used a gradient to get that kind of shape, but it didn't work too well. But anyway, then using warps, I got that shape a little bit fuller, and that one a little bit tinier. So the funny thing is, I didn't know I could do that with a warp, but if you go like you can, I think from the start you're at 1, but you can actually double click it and enter any value that you want. So you can go in the positive values, but you can also get in the negative values, and that way you can just pinch those pattern together. So I got something like that. And using another crystal thing, I've tried to get those thing going. I'm not too sure if it works, but it does something. There's some magic in there, so I'll say it works. Using it, just blurring it with a gradient, so it's as you can see, there's more variation here, and the more you get on the right, the less there is. So I was going, so I can keep that part a bit fuller and that part a bit messier. Using levels once again, so I can get those shape a bit thinner. And using that one on overlay, it's a simple shape that I rescaled a lot. On overlay, so I can get that part really popping off and that part going down. Once again, using a transformation to get it tinier, and you can see it's the actual torch is a bit crushed on the top, because I wanted to fit in the square, but in the end I just rescaled it on the side, so it really didn't matter too much. Like this, you can see it's a bit squished on the sides. And then I've had it, this, so you can blend the two together, and there's a darker spot here, so it doesn't make a real I mean, it's not obvious that it's cut. It is, but it's not really, I mean, it's less obvious that it's cut. Once you get that, I just rescaled it and blend together that tiny crown. It's right there. So I've created that leaf. Let's begin at the beginning. To create that leaf, it was quite easy. Once again, sorry, a shape that I leveled, and I rotated it, put in mirror, and that one just simply moved a bit, stretched a bit on the top, and blend together. You get something like that. Once you get it, I just added the two tiniest parts on the bottom. You get that thing. Here it's blurred, so I can get a little bit more volume. And there I've pushed the black on the right, so I can get that rounder shape. And I've shut the white down a bit, so they're not really popping off the thing. And by doing that, I can use that Gaussian pattern on overlay on top, and you can see it adds a little bit more volumes on certain spots, so it goes a little deeper. Once I get that, I've used a lot of transform, as you can see here, to place them, because I really wanted to know where they were, so I placed it by hand, and I wanted to be able to change anything if it wasn't, like, when you get a reference picture, you always try to do your thing the closest to the reference picture, but sometimes I just really got tired of it, and it's just like, yeah, okay, not that part is not really, yeah, okay, I can do something else. So I usually mix up some other pictures, and it's really, in the end, you're the one doing it. So if you're tired of something, you can just say, yeah, nah, I'm not doing it. Um, so on that part, I did once again one side, so with those tiny leaves and plugged in a mirror like that. And those tiny things are simply those shapes created with a splatter circular once again. So I get that shape and I can move them around and blend them together like this, and you can just splatter them like anywhere you want. I just wanted to feel a bit more full, and that's all. So I get that part. Once you get that, you can mirror that and use yeah, I've used again that shape, I mean that kind of noise, and used it with a level. I've transformed it, see, I squished it on the top, level it, and using a Cartesian 2 polar once again, I've got that round thing going. So I squished it a bit more and masked it with once again a square on the sides so I can get straight edges right there. Blend them together with that on max lighten, so the leaves are on top of that thing. I've used the warp with the Gaussian spots in there just to break the really symmetrical parts. It's not much, but I think it does the trick. Once again, transform it, put it in place, and blend it together with the bottom. So now that I've got my torches right there, transformed with the crown, like this, tiny, like this. This part right here was the ribbon parts. It's like tied together with a ribbon. So the ribbons are right there. It was once again quite easy on that part because it's only that same noise once again blend with that shape. See, I didn't even care about the tiling there because I just wanted to get that part in the middle. So you can rotate it, and once again, and I put a little level on it so you can see that that part goes underneath that part, so you can get a real cross. Transform it and blend it with the rest. And the ribbons on the sides were a bit trickier in the way that I actually don't really know how I've made it. It was a lot of luckiness with the shapes and the warps, and I just tried, and it worked out pretty well, I think. Once again, I wanted to work on one side, and since it's really you can mirror a lot of things in that thing, so it may look like it's really difficult to get it, but you really do things. I don't know how to explain it. You do half of the work. The rest is just mirroring and transforming it. So uh, you don't have to feel like you can do that because it's too much work. If you take the time to really look at the whole shape and say, okay, like that part is really exactly like that one and that one and that one, and those borders are exactly the same, and you can see you'll do the shapes once and just reusing it all the way through the end. So I got that half ribbon right here, put it in a mirror once again, and I got that part, and blending them all together, sorry, you got this part, the bottom part. So here you go, you got that thing done. Now let's get to the top part. This one right here. Once again, it was some kind of ribbons on the side, like rotating around something, I don't know. So I've tried to decompose the shape, and it was simply like something like that. Something, yep, like that. That you can transform and make it tile on the sides. Then I've blurred it a little to get those shapes once again, those a bit more volume once again, using a level so you can get that thing. And then I just use the directional warp so you can see now it goes on a direction using that thing with a blur. You can get that. And then it was like the top goes on the right side and the bottom goes on the left side, so it was quite easy. You just have to take that take that, flip it, and you take the two of them with a mask right here, and you get that part will be the bottom part, and that part will be the top, and with the mask you get that shape pretty easily. And now I wanted to get that kind of, I don't know what shape it is, but it looks like a carrot almost. So to get that carrot shape, I've used that thing, simply using a curve like this. You see, it really looks like a carrot, actually. Level it so I can get more of that shape, and using that gradient on top of it, I can get that tiny line in the middle that is really shiny right now. And using it, I just see right there, I rotated it on the side, level it, and in subtract mode, once again, you get again that carrot shape ribbon on the side. And then afterwards, it was the arrows on the side that were a bit tricky because I couldn't get really the curves right. So where are they? Right there. So the arrow itself is quite easy. It was like a big shape, a big square rectangle, and using a polygon node, I just created a triangle and blend them together, cause something like that. And then once again, it was a lot of trying, a lot of failing with the warps, but I tried to get some things going. And once I was kinda happy with the shape, I just transformed it, rotated a bit, see, move upwards, so I can get those double arrows, and transformed it, blurred a little so I can get a bit more depth, and see it's a bit more rounded now. And once again, a mirror in the corners, mirror corner right there, so I can get those 4 things, and the carrots will be there like this. So I got my arrows, I got the ribbons, and the tiny ribbons right there, yep, were quite easy to do with the splatter circular once again. I just got that tiny shape on top, and this one was created with paraboloids, and this one with a simple disc, because I just wanted that part, you see, to I can't really show it right now, but you see that part is a bit higher and that part just comes in the bottom, so it's just to get that part a bit higher, and that part was just plain gray in the bottom. Once I get this, I've just transformed, see that shape, it goes that way, and then just flip it and you get something like that. And once you get that, you can transform it, put it in the right direction like this. And right there I've used that gradient in a transform just to add that part, to add a little bit more volume and depth to the thing. Once again, mirror, you get those patterns, a little bit of level to get it right, and now I got everything that I need to do those parts. So once again here you can see I've made I've copy pasted the tiny flower that I've made before, a little bit rescaled and blend together those shapes. And there, yep, there was I've added like a black spot in the middle, just using that shape in Substract, so you can get that part in the middle going deeper, and just adding that one in Max Lighten, so I get the flower back, and then the tiny ribbons, and that's pretty much it. You get the top part. So as you can see, on this one you can see it. It's kind of crushed on the sides. You can see that the flower is not really round, it's more stretched on the top, like the moons are too. Oh, the moons, where are they? That's a good question. Ah, the moons are here. Okay, so I got the ribbons right there. Added that shape in the right side to get that ball right here, and the moons are simply paraboloid, leveled a bit, so it gets a bit flatter. You see on top, and moving that side, you can get the shape more or less big on the side. Transformed it and squish it a bit on the corner, and using a subtract mode, once again you get that moon-like shape, so you can transform it, squish it a bit, and using a level, you see you lose that part that you don't really want and get that really sharp moon shape. Sorry. So you get that part, mirror it, you get the other parts, and then when you blend it together, it does something like that. And once again, you got the top, the bottom, and the only part left is the centerpiece. So for now, it looks like that. Okay, let's get to the interesting part, I guess, the deer one. To get the deer, it was interesting, I'd say. The head was a big part, a lot of fun to do, and the rest was like the weapons were a bit less interesting, because it was more like creating once again the torches that I've made before. It's the same idea, and the moons were already existed. You see those parts on the corners. So yeah, and once again the leaves were created before, and the tiny fruits were created before, and I did some branches, and once again the ribbons were already made, and the arrow right there was already made too, so I only had to focus on the deer head. And to start, I pretty much worked exactly like I've created the leaves on the side. I've worked on half of it by simply adding shapes together. You'll see it like this. So that's my main shape. It's a Polaroid, paraboloid, sorry. And I just started by adding them together. So I get the side of the face, a bit of the nose, and then I got the eye parts on the side, the centerpiece like in the middle. Here was a little bit for the antlers, and that part here was the ear. You got there. And that's pretty much it. Oh no, that part was, yeah, for the antlers. That one might be just to get the shape done, probably. So I got that thing. Mirroring it, you get that thing. And then using a blur, once again, and a level, once again, you get that shape. So it doesn't look quite good for now, but you'll see, you'll come around. And then I wanted to crease in it, so the part that I wanted to crease were those hair parts, the eye parts, and the nose. So to create the nose, I'm just using that pattern, the crescent pattern. Love it, and you get that crescent pattern. Using it with that shape again with a level, I've stretched it a bit to get those really creased corners right there. So if you add them together, you get the eye, you get the nose, and now you can. I just reused that shape, the ear shape, and moved it right there, so I can get the crease inside. You see that little thing right there, and I've used another shape right there to get that. I don't know. It was just to get the good shape of the ear, something like that. And once you put that whole combination of things together and put them in subtract on top of the main shape, you get something like that. That part was a little tricky. I'm not sure it's really interesting, but I just wanted to get those tiny hairs on top. It's just a lot of noise and not really interesting part. So I got that going. Right after I've made the eyes, so the eyes were pretty simple. Once again, I just used those shapes that I've worked to get like the eyebrow shape. Transformed it a bit, middle level, and that part is just a simple shape. Transform, level, and that part is really tricky, but it adds a lot actually. It's the pupil inside. So on screen on top of it with a really tiny opacity, but it really does the trick. When the lights hits them, it adds a lot of things. So here's my eye, mirror it and blend it together, and you get eyes on your deer. Right after that, that's a mask. I made this to get the highlight parts. As you can see, they get like highlights like every other beast. So it's pretty much the same. I tried to get like on the nose to get those bumps right there, to get this one too, and on the eyebrows a bit on top to get more of that volume. So I've used that shape once again to get the eyebrows right, like this. if you try it, you'll see that most of the time the shapes really don't look good at all, but when they're blended together, it works. So don't stop yourself by it's ugly, because it will come around in the end. So in the end, I had something like that. So this is supposed to be the nose, and this one is the big part of the head, and those parts right here are the eyebrows. Sorry. And when you blend it all together, you get that shape right there. Once again, I transform, so I stretched it a bit on the on top, and to do the antlers right there. It's messy. I'm sorry. I try to clean it up. So I just simply add that shape. It's a simple circle that I've stretched on top, level it to get that shape, and using warps once again, you can see I try to get some things done, like it's right there, here, and blending them together, I got something like that. So you can see I used that one, just transform it, rotate it, and blend together, and with that one it creates something like that. And there was a tiny spike there, so add them too, and you get this. Once you blur it, and I've had it some it's like the exact same warps, I just copy pasted that part right here. Those four nodes are those four nodes, and using the anisotropic noise right there, I just it's to add a bit more detail. You can see there because the size is a bit tiny, not really tiny, but it's a bit tiny. You can add a bit more, see, a bit more depth inside, a bit more details, leveling it, and transform, mirror once again, and you get the deer. Once that was made, you have put the moons right there, and you got a tiny one on top of his head too. And after that is the weapon part. The weapon part is quite easy when you know how the torches worked. It's pretty much the same, really. So I just created a curve, see, with the shape that I wanted. Using, once again, it's always a gradient, a curve, a level to get the white a bit more down. Using gradients with a level inverted, and in subtract you get that thing. So that was for the spike going on the right side, and then you had that tiny parts right there that is made quite easily with shapes once again, and mirrors. So if you get those shapes mirrored vertically and subtracted with that part right there, you get something like that. And once again, I don't really care about that part. It doesn't really matter if it's here or not, because using the mirror I get something like that, and just using that same shape once again, transform, rescaled a bit, and added in the centerpiece, I get something like that. Looks like a candy, actually. Shutting down the whites once again, using another shape with a transform to add that tiny thing in the middle. You can get that part. Transform, blend it together, and you got this. Transformed it again, and you got that part. On that one, it's exactly the same, except that I've added that part to this part. See, it's exactly the same, and so I got something like that to do the axe on that side. The curve is almost the same, except it's a spike here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Alrighty. So you got the axe on one side, right there. The arrow was exactly the same arrow than before, except that I just added that little part at the end, right there. Level it, and it's really dark now. Level it. You had the axe and the spear, and you got everything. So you can come and blend it together. And the rest is really it's really messy too, but it's okay. I got the same leaf, you know, the leaf I created in the beginning. I've transformed it a lot and blended it a lot because I really wanted to put them like where I want it. First of all, I've created a branch, some kind of a branch, using warps once again, just trying to get some things going on. Transform it and rotated it so I get something like that. Once I get that, I transformed it again so I could get some leaves on top and everywhere around. Just to shut it down a bit. Yeah, and then I added the leaves. So the leaves were like splattered a bit everywhere. I really tried to get the branch in the middle of the thing before using a blend. So I'm sorry, it didn't mean anything. I tried to get the branch inside of the pattern so I can place the leaf where I wanted it to be. So I can like put them where there was an empty spot or something like that. I just could, if there's an empty spot, just put a leaf in it and it works. It's okay. So I've placed them by hand like that, and same thing with the tiny foots that I've placed around, so you get something like that. I've blurred it a bit using a level to get some more depth with it. That's probably why I've lost so many details in there. It's probably because I used the blur so much. And getting that one on multiply, I get, it's not really obvious, but you get a bit more depth in some places. Once again, using a transformation, flip it and blend them together and you get that part. And remember that tiny cross we created before? Here it is once again, and just holding the branches together. And right there, the ribbons that we created before, same again, they're right here. Right there, and just branched in a mirror, and it does the trick. And there, remember the crown we created earlier? Well, there's the crown right there. You just have to pick it up. And I've added a tiny flower on top because it's pretty. And I think there's a flower on the reference picture. So here it is, and you got that part, you blend it all together, and ta-da! You got this. Level to shut down the whites once again, blending all together, and you got this. And once you got it done, really, I'm the kind of people that really, I'm more interested in the 8 map than the, I mean, I love the materials, but the 8 map is really the fun part for me. So I went pretty simple on the material itself. As you can see, it's how can I say it? Yeah, it's way simpler than the rest. But don't mind it, as long as your ID works pretty well. You don't really care about how complex it is. You don't have to make it too much just for it to pop off. Just adding some noise right there. In the 8 map, it's really thin. I'm not sure. Even myself can't really see it right now. Once again, some noise. For the normal map, it's pretty much the 8 map blended with all that noise and some more tiny noises on top of it in the normal. And once you get it, the base color was pretty simple too. It's in fact a lot of plain colors, using a lot of masks, using the 8. So right there, it's by using the curvature smooth right there. I get the curves on the 8 map, using it in an add mode with a bit lighter color than this one, to get those highlights. Then I've used the ambient occlusion to get those parts right here, and using some cloud noise, subtracting it to the ambient occlusion. You get those dirt effects everywhere. Just adding some bluish, grayish, dark color on the corners, getting even deeper with that a bit lighter greenish color on top of it. That part was the dirt, so I just basically took this one, level it once again, so you get even tinier pieces of white on the corners, and using dirt, a dirt noise on top of it, it breaks the clearness of everything, I'd say. Using that greenish thing once again to get that that dirt in the corners, and using it's for the dust. So using the dust, I have a plain grayish color, and using the normal map, if you plug your normal map in a RGBA splits node, you can only get the green layer, and this layer is it's a green layer of a normal map, so it's from top to bottom, it's the top to bottom thing. And if you use a level behind it, you can get those parts using only the top part, as if it was as if the dust was really going only on top of those parts. See, using a dirt once again, and subtract to break that thing, and using a grayish color in copy that time, and that's pretty much it for the base color. And as you can see, the roughness is a mix of everything. Every mask that I've created are just blend together to get those parts really rough. And every part of dirt is the part that will be really more or less rough, I'd say. Blend together, that one last on screen on top of it, and the metallic is pretty much the opposite. So I got my roughness here, a step of my roughness that I inverted a bit more level, so you can still see the metallic parts underneath the dirt, and inverting once again the mask of the dust right there, to multiply it so you can see there's a bit less metallic on top. It's really all about how it looks. I'm not sure how I explain it is really clear, but you have to just test it out. If you test and it doesn't look good, just try something else. If you test it, you don't know how, but it looks good, just keep it. In that case, it looks pretty okay with me, and I've spent a lot of time on the 8 maps, so I was a bit tired, so it was pretty okay with me. I just added the simple ambient occlusion right there, and that's pretty much it. You got everything done right there. So I hope it was kind of helpful, sorry, for you. Feel free to ask questions if you have them. I'll try to do some more of those videos in the future. I don't know when exactly, but I'll do my best to do something. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to contact me if you have anything you'd like to ask. And here it is. Have fun creating stuff. Bye bye.